So first came the POCO F7 Ultra, and then the POCO F7 Pro, and then finally we got the most budget-friendly model, the regular vanilla POCO F7. And that is quite the threesome, but what is the difference and which one is actually best for you? Well, your Uncle Spurt has had all three of these wedged in his pants the past few weeks, and here's my hot take. My literally hot take, because I've had three smartphones shoved in my shorts. And you can see my full reviews of all these F7 blowers right here on TechSpurt. So first of all, I've slapped them all side by side in price order. So you've got the regular POCO F7, then the Pro, then the Ultra. And the keen of eye might have noticed that the regular POCO F7 actually is slightly bigger than the Pro and Ultra models. It's a whopping great massive 6.83 inches, the size of Godzilla's jockstrap, versus the more moderate 6.67 inch Pro and Ultra. But apart from that, all pretty similar around front. You've got nice skinny bezels on all three, dinky wee selfie cam orifice. However, if you flip them around to the rear end, you'll see that while the Pro and the Ultra sport a very similar design, POCO have clearly decided, oh f it, with the regular F7 and gone completely off script. You've got the same two-tone finish on the Pro and the Ultra, but a bit more texture here on the Ultra's surface, and of course that bit of copper trim surrounding the camera. And you've got slightly more curvature at the edges around the back of the Ultra as well, so it is a wee bit more comfortable to clutch compared with the Pro, which is rather iPhoney with its very flat edges. And the regular POCO F7 is another iPhoney slab, again with a two-tone design but in a very different style, especially this here silver edition. I do really like the aesthetics here. You've got the funky transparent bit up top. Although fortunately they went with a glossy surface for the bottom bit, which as you can see there does get very smudgy indeed. If that's going to bother you, I'd highly suggest going for the white model of the POCO F7, which sports a matte surface instead. It is a real shame because I really love the look of this silver edition, but it does get incredibly grubby when you touch it, which you kind of have to do to use the thing. Now all three POCO F7 smartphones sport a glass rear end plus metal edging, while around front it's Gorilla Glass 7 eye protecting the regular F7 and the F7 Pro. That's upgraded to shield glass for the Ultra, but all three nice and scratch resistant and doubly protected with a pre-installed screen protector. And good news if you like to relax with a hot bubbly bath and a good bit of doom scrolling at the same time, because all three of these POCO F7 blowers are IP68 water and dust resistant, so they can be fully submerged in the drink, take them to the beach, all that shenanigans, no worries. Now it is a simple optical fingerprint sensor built into the display of the regular POCO F7, nice and responsive as you can see, although if your fingers are a wee bit moist or grubby, well the F7 scanner does fail more regularly than the Pro and the Ultra. And that's because they feature an upgrade to an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint sensor, which actually takes a full 3D scan of your print, so it's more reliable. As you can see, they're just as fast to act, and you do have face unlock with all three as a backup. And then it's mostly the same software situation with all three, of course running Xiaomi's HyperOS version 2 slapped on top of Android 15. And while Xiaomi didn't really care so much about the software update side of things back in the day, they're definitely getting better in that regard. So you've got 4 guaranteed OS updates with all three of these handsets and 6 guaranteed years of security patching. And of course the HyperOS experience is kind of love it or hate it. You used to get bugged quite a lot by notifications from all the various Xiaomi apps that are installed, but thankfully of course Android allows you to just disable these now, which is excellent. You've got the separate control center and notifications panel, which I know not everyone is a fan of. And let's face it, HyperOS can be less than intuitive at times when all you're trying to do is, for instance, change your wallpaper. You have to tap on like a million different bloody things to do it. And as for the volume of crapware loaded onto all three of these buggers, well, don't even get me started on that. If you start uninstalling it all right now, you might just about be done by the time Santa squeezes his fat arse down the chimney. And when I was reviewing all three POCO F7 phones, I did occasionally encounter a bit of balkiness. But the quirk that really annoyed me with the regular POCO F7 compared with the Pro and the Ultra is the fact that that always on display isn't actually always on. It only displays for up to 10 seconds, as you can see there, and then it buggers right off. Only popping back on if it detects that you're staring at the thing, or if you give it a good jab. And of course it won't detect that you're looking at it if it's just sat there on a desk or a table next to you. You actually have to be holding it and staring at it, in which case you might as well be poking the shit out of it. Apart from that, pretty similar software experience on all three. So for instance, tap your way into HyperAI, got full Gemini and Circle to Search support and a whole bunch of other AI guff. As you can see, the AI search is only available on the Pro and the Ultra though. And all three highly customizable, of course. And all three, even the regular POCO F7, offer 256 gigs of storage as standard, and you can upgrade that to 512 gigs by throwing just a few extra crisp tenors at Xiaomi. Which is mightily generous when you compare it to the likes of Apple and Google, where it's 128 gigs as base and it's going to cost you like £100 if you want more. And all three support dual SIM, but there is bugger all love for eSIM for some absolutely befuddling reason. And it's particularly annoying if you do a lot of traveling, because it's just so quick, easy and convenient to grab yourself an eSIM for the local area that you're traveling to. And no, sadly there's sod all space in any of these SIM trays for a bit of micro SD memory card action. So as I mentioned back at the start of this cracking wee video, the POCO F7 sports a larger 6.83 inch display versus the 6.67 inch panel on the Pro and the Ultra. It is AMOLED tech slapped on all three, so gorgeous contrast. You've got full HDR10 and Dolby Vision streaming support on the regular F7 as well as the Pro and Ultra, plus an impressive selection of color options to play around with, so you can make those visuals as poppy as you like. All three certainly an absolute treat for any movie fans out there, and despite being larger, you do get a slightly less sharp resolution on the regular POCO F7. It's 2772 by 1280 res panel versus 3200 x 1440 pixels on the Pro and Ultra. You just got to remember to actually activate that high res mode on the Pro and Ultra to take advantage of that extra crisp clarity. And while the Pro and the Ultra are technically slightly brighter than the regular POCO F7, all three are comfortably bright enough to use even in proper full-on sunshine, even when you're rocking the shades. The colours do go a little bit mental when you max out the brightness on all three of these blows, but the readability stays impeccable. You've got loads of settings and features to play around with in the display settings, like sort of the sunlight mode to give it a bit of a wee boost if things are quite bright. You've got a dedicated reading mode, which can just make things a bit easier on the peepers in the evenings. You can fully schedule that. You've got 3840Hz PWM dimming on all of them, and they all max out at 120Hz refresh rate, although none of them feature LTPO tech. Oh, and the screen responsiveness still excellent even when wet. And all three have got a fairly respectable stereo speaker setup. Quite powerful when you max out that volume. The clarity stays reasonably strong. Unfortunately, they are quite imbalanced. Bottom speaker definitely more powerful. It's especially more obvious on the regular POCO F7. But of course, one of the big differences between this trio is the performance. And of course, the more money you chuck at POCO, the better the chipset they've stuffed inside. You got the Snapdragon 8S Gen 4 stuffed in the regular POCO F7 versus the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in the POCO F7 Pro, and what else but that 8 Elite for the Ultra model. And POCO has also slapped 12 gigs of RAM in all of these bad boys, but the Ultra model does come in a 16 gig flavor as well, and that is the version that I've reviewed. Now all three cope absolutely fine with everyday life, although you will see the occasional wee judder even on that F7 Ultra thanks to HyperOS's less than smooth UI. But when it comes to gaming, well, all three of them can handle the likes of Wuthering Waves, a really intensive, not particularly optimized Android title, even when you crank those visual settings up to the highest level. Although only the Pro and the Ultra managed to maintain a super smooth 60 frames per second rate for the majority of your gaming sessions. On the regular POCO F7, this does often dip to just below 50 FPS, and the phone also gets unnervingly hot after around 20 to 30 minutes of gaming, so it ain't particularly comfortable to clutch. And that is despite the fact that you've got Xiaomi's Liquid Cool 4 tech squeezed into the regular POCO F7 as well as the Pro and the Ultra. You can still handle the gaming absolutely fine, even for an hour, 2 hours, however long you want to play. Your fingertips might get a wee bit toasty. And of course, if you're gaming on more casual fare, the likes of Call of Duty, PUBG, games that are highly optimized for different Android devices, well, no worries, they can all cope absolutely fine there. And that regular F7 doesn't get quite so burny. Now, despite being the cheapest option here, the POCO F7 actually beats its siblings when it comes to battery capacity. 6,500 milliamp hours, one of the biggest batteries I've tested in any smartphone around, versus a still very respectable 6,000 milliamp hours in the Pro, and that's scaled back to just 5,300 milliamp hours on the Ultra. I'll say just, that's still better than most flagships out there. But it doesn't really matter too much because all three of these phones can happily last a super long, intensive day with literally hours and hours and hours of screen on time, plenty of camera action, all of the good stuff. But if you are looking for a smartphone that can maybe last you a full weekend, for instance, if you do a lot of traveling, you don't get much time to actually charge your smartphone, then the regular POCO F7 is probably your best bet. However, gaming on the likes of Wuthering Waves does wipe out these lads pretty quick. So on the Pro and the Ultra, you'll get around 3.5 to 4 hours of full-on Wuthering Waves action from a full charge before they're completely wiped. Slightly longer for the regular POCO F7, you'll typically get between 4 and 4.5 hours. That is as long as you can handle the heat. And of course, naturally, the Ultra is the fastest to charge of the three, not only because it supports 120 watt super fast wired charging, but also because of that smaller capacity battery. You've got 80 watt charging on the Pro. It's actually slightly better on the regular F7, 90 watts, but they take roughly the same amount of time to charge because of the difference in capacity. So you're talking roughly half an hour for the F7 Ultra to fully charge, compared with about 40 to 45 minutes for the other two. So pretty nippy no matter your choice, although only the POCO F7 Ultra supports wireless charging, and it's rather commendable 50 watt effort. So last up for this lovely POCO three-way, bit of a squint at the camera tech, and the regular F7 and the POCO F7 Pro sport a dual lens setup, and that's upgraded to a triple lens shooter on the Ultra. You got a 50 meg Light Fusion 800 sensor on the Pro and the Ultra versus another 50 meg Sony sensor on the F7, but it's the IMX882 here. Thankfully that shutter speed nice and nippy on all three. And the results across the board are pretty good in both strong and dim lighting. Occasionally this trio can chuck out a duff shot for seemingly little reason, but you won't see much grain creeping into low light snaps, especially with the Pro and the Ultra, which use a larger sensor. And all three can cope pretty well with HDR type situations. The Ultra is the way to go though if you shoot a lot of portraits thanks to its dedicated telephoto lens, or you just like to zoom, as it can capture stronger detail levels over a moderate distance. The majority of people should be happy with all three of these blowers. Got all the bonus camera modes you'd expect, including, yes, a dedicated Pro mode on all three. And if you swap to the video mode, where you can actually capture up to 8K resolution footage at 24 frames per second on the Pro and the Ultra, whereas the regular POCO F7 does max out at 4K resolution, but you can shoot at 30 or 60 frames per second on all three. And they certainly all do the job for your simple shareable home movies. Visual quality is excellent across the board, stabilization top notch. Audio pickup not too bad either. I have noticed on quite blustery days the F7 Pro and the regular F7 do tend to struggle a bit more than the Ultra, so if you do live somewhere a bit breezy, so maybe take that into consideration. And then it's a similar selfie cam setup on all three, although as you can see there, my t-shirt does look considerably more yellow here on the regular POCO F7 compared with the Pro, and especially the Ultra, which seems to be saturating the hell out of it. But all three can capture full HD resolution footage. There's no 4K shooting in that front end with any of these F7 blowers. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a tasty wee nutshell is the POCO F7 versus the Pro versus the Ultra. Just give you an idea of which one might be best for you. Now, it'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Are you tempted by any of these POCO F7 blowers? All often pretty solid value for money overall, as long as you can cope with the fact that they're running HyperOS, which can be a wee bit quirky. Got full reviews of all three of these smartphones right here, right now on TechSperts. Definitely go check those out for all you need to know. Please do poke subscribe, ding that notifications bell, all the usual YouTube bollocks, and have yourselves a rosy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers, everyone. Love you.